Gabriel glanced out the window. There it was, the bus stop he'd known since childhood. It was as if he'd been transported back 20 years, to his youth, a time full of hopes and dreams. The bus jerked to a stop. Gabriel grabbed his sports bag, all he had accumulated over the years, losing much more in the process. The same newspaper kiosk stood near the ticket booth. Virgin Mary. Did anyone still read newspapers and magazines? The little store still stood in its place, albeit patched up and with a new sign. The air was fresh after the recent rain, and the trees stood bright, washed by the heavenly water. Gabriel slowly made his way to where he had left exactly 20 years ago. He didn't know what he was hoping for, as Isabella could well have moved away or gotten married. Why was he drawn there, to that old house with a tiny picket fence? What would he say to her when they met? How would she react to his arrival? Gabriel decided not to think about it and just kept walking forward. He noticed the old plane tree from afar. That tree had been old back then, but it hadn't changed much over the years. And there were the swings, which he had once hung from the pull-up bar, the story of which had been a secret from Isabella and her parents. When the family moved into this house, it was already there, rusty and shabby. The swings were painted in a delicate lemon color. The same swings they sometimes sat on until dawn. She would lay her head on his shoulder, and he would kiss her in the dark hair, which she always wore in a braid for some reason. When Gabriel left his hometown, the swings were also painted this color. Did Isabella keep this memory of him, of their youthful love, this way? But the house. It wasn't that old house with a light brown roof. In its place stood a small, but sturdily built two-story house with a beautiful dark cherry roof. There was even an extension, very tiny, but also strong, built recently. It was evident at once. Yes, it seemed Isabella had moved. Was she alive? Gabriel stopped, gathering his thoughts. Suddenly, the door of the house swung open, and there she was, his Isabella, on the porch. She hadn't changed at all. How was that possible? 20 years had passed, a considerable amount of time. The same braid, even her t-shirt and shorts resembled the old ones. It couldn't be. "Do you need something, sir?" the girl asked with a smile, descending the steps. "Are you here to see Mom? Isabella? Is it you?" "No, my name is Matilda. They say Mom and I look very alike." "Like two peas in a pod," Gabriel said thoughtfully. "I'll call Mom right now." The girl flew up the steps and disappeared into the house. Usually, visitors were invited inside, but apparently, it wasn't customary here. Gabriel sat down in one of the wicker chairs, standing in the shade of a luxuriant lilac bush, as if meant for a couple in love. He didn't notice the door opening, or the woman descending the steps and approaching very close. "Are you here about the house?" Isabella asked with her soft, melodious voice. He looked up at her. "Gabriel," the woman covered her mouth with her hand. "Is it you? What are you doing here? Your aunt passed away a few years ago." "Yes, I know. I didn't come to see her. I came." He hesitated. "I came to see you." "To see me? Why? Nostalgia?" She smiled, but her eyes didn't laugh as they used to. "And your family?" "Izzy, I'm sorry for barging into your life like this. I have no family, and I never did." Isabella sank into the adjacent armchair. Her braids were gone. Her hair was neatly gathered into a bun at the nape of her neck. "Where's your lovely braid?" Gabriel suddenly asked. The braid stayed with that silly Izzy, who dreamed of love and a cottage by the lake. Who believed she had found a good guy capable of loving her for life and protecting her from all troubles. Naive, foolish Izzy, whose dreams crashed against the rock of reality, Isabella said sadly, smiling and crossing her legs, slipping off one shoe to avoid dirtying her light trousers. "Izzy, I know I behaved like a real idiot. I was young, hot-headed. I thought all doors were open to me. But it was just an illusion. If you only knew how many times I regretted what I did. I am, essentially, a failure. Everything fell apart. Fernando turned out to be deep in debt, had to sell the auto shop. And then, after our friend's death, he disappeared without a trace, as if swallowed by the earth. I tried to find him, but in vain. And now, do you see this worn-out bag with meager belongings? That's all I have. Do you want me to pity you? Isabella smirked. No, just talking to you right now brings me joy. Thank you, Izzy. Do you have a place to stay? Isabella pulled a lilac branch closer, inhaling the scent of its delicate flowers. No. I thought maybe Carlos would let me stay with him. Carlos is gone. Illness took him last year, burned out in a matter of months. Yes, and I knew nothing. Your life was boiling. You had no time for a little forgotten town. Isabella released the branch. No, Izzy, it's not like that. I was just trying to make something of myself. You remember, my cousin Fernando suggested opening the auto shop in the capital. But we never went to the capital. Fernando's friend invited us to Cyprus. He had just started his business. We thought it was fate. We were thinking about the auto shop. There you go. We didn't care then, capital or Cyprus. You could have opened the auto shop here. You know, people don't exactly thrive here either, if you didn't know. What are you comparing? There was something there already, and here. At first, things were going well for us, for a few years, but then. It's because you stayed put. The world moves forward. The auto shop should have kept pace. Yes, you're right. We got stuck, couldn't expand the business that was doing well. Anyway, what's the use of talking about it now? You can stay at the shelter. Isabella nodded towards the extension. What shelter? The man didn't understand. A few years ago, I set up a small shelter for those who found themselves in difficult life situations. Mostly my guests are women with children, but sometimes there are men too, who have lost all hope for a normal life. Is this your business? Gabriel asked, looking somewhere else. No, more like charity. The last time we met, you were a hairdresser. Gabriel scratched his chin. I still cut hair sometimes, dye it, even learned to do afro braids. Isabella laughed. But it's more like a hobby. A mysterious woman. What's your main occupation then? Or do money just fall from the sky onto you? Gabriel smiled, looking up at the sky. No, Gabriel, I had to achieve everything in this life myself. I don't expect a money shower, I just work. And what do you do? Toys now. What? What toys? This can't bring in much income. You're mistaken. It depends on the specifics. For me, it's life-size hyper-realistic animals. Who buys them from you? I highly doubt the residents of this town are willing to fork out a hefty sum for such trinkets. People, Gabriel, people who appreciate beauty and are willing to spend big on it. You know, there are quite a few of them in this world. You probably forgot there's the internet. They can order from anywhere in the world. Do you want some tea? I do, the man simply replied. The living room was cozy and quaint. A large lynx lay on the floor. How lifelike, exclaimed Gabriel. Is this what you do? Exactly, replied the homeowner, carrying a tray with cups and various treats for tea. Bruno helps me too. He's a person of pure soul, blessed in this life, yet not embittered, but rather helping me with the shelter. Actually, he started this whole thing. That night, Gabriel couldn't sleep. He was assigned a small room with modest furnishings. The shelter was nearly empty. The previous tenants had recently left, and the new ones hadn't arrived yet. Silence enveloped the man accustomed to the noisy city, to perpetual hustle. Thoughts from his past life began to creep into his mind when all doors seemed open, and the world so welcoming and wondrous. Gabriel remembered Izzy, the Izzy who was once willing to follow him to the ends of the earth, the one he had betrayed. They met on the seashore. A storm was clearly brewing. The sky hung over the earth with a gray blanket, the wind subsided, calm usually precedes a storm, mosquitoes tormented, biting bare hands and faces. Gabriel noticed a girl from afar, walking barefoot on the deserted beach, holding sandals in one hand. Her gaze was fixed somewhere beneath her feet. She stooped and picked something up, quickly straightened, and began examining her find. Only then did Gabriel notice the metal detector in her free hand. "Hey!" Gabriel greeted when they approached each other closely. The girl startled and looked at him cautiously. "Hello," she replied quietly. "Are you looking for treasure?" The guy smiled. "Just a childish pastime," the girl replied, relaxing slightly. "Sometimes you even find jewelry. Probably lost by tourists." "And what do you do with them?" "I put them in a box. Maybe they'll come in handy someday," she shrugged. "I'm Gabriel." "And I'm Isabella, but you can call me Izzy." "Beautiful name." The guy picked up a pebble and tossed it into the sea. "Thank you." They walked along the shore almost silently, only occasionally exchanging a few words. Usually, with a stranger, you feel a bit awkward, trying to find suitable topics for conversation, but these two felt completely natural, as if they had known each other for years. She had just turned 18, and he was 22. "I haven't seen you here before," Isabella said. Suddenly, the metal detector beeped. "Wow! It's a ring," exclaimed the girl, squatting down and shaking the jewelry off the wet sand. "How beautiful!" "It's a sign." Gabriel also squatted down, said. "A sign that we met not by chance. And I only came to my aunt's the day before yesterday." Isabella didn't say anything, just tossed her thick dark braid, which fell on her chest, behind her back and smiled. From that day on, Gabriel was the only thing on Isabella's mind. She remembered the colors of his eyes like wet asphalt with a sparkle. Her parents noticed that something strange was happening to their daughter. She became absent-minded, thoughtful, dreamily gazing somewhere, but it was difficult to understand where exactly. Even at the hairdressers, changes in Isabella's behavior were noted. "Are you in love, by any chance?" a colleague once asked. "Me? I don't know, Martha, maybe," Isabella replied vaguely. Isabella went on every date with Gabriel as if flying on wings. He led her somewhere downtown, where couples usually strolled in the old park, and she just wanted to be with him. To climb, for example, into the treehouse not far from her house or to be alone on the beach. But Isabella wanted to please Gabriel. She realized that she was just a wild girl who loved peace and quiet, and he wanted company, some lively bustle, to be in the midst of events. "I want you to be with me always," Gabriel said once as they sat on the swings. It was already quite dark, stars scattered across the sky like rhinestones on fabric. The air smelled of lilacs and sea freshness. "I want to be with you too," the girl replied quietly. "My brother and I are going to open a car repair shop. We'll definitely make it big," Gabriel said. Then he took her chin and kissed her. He pressed his lips to hers eagerly, like a weary traveler presses to a stream with clean water. "Let's go inside." "My parents won't be back until tomorrow," the girl suggested, interrupting the kiss. She woke up when the sun was already high, illuminating everything around with its mischievous rays. Gabriel wasn't in the room. Isabella stretched. The pillow still held the scent of her beloved. How wonderful it was to fall asleep and wake up together. She wished it could last forever, until old age. She wanted to become the mother of his children, the mistress of their future home. Everything seemed so cloudless. Youth. The road stretched out before you like a canvas. It seemed like the whole world was opening up, like an interesting, captivating book with lots of pictures. It was the beginning of July. The young people had agreed to meet at the beach. It was deserted, a storm was gathering. It was just right for a quiet conversation. "Izzy, my brother and I are going to Cyprus." "What?" Isabella stopped. "He was invited by an acquaintance. He's a mechanic, but he also wants to start his own business. It's much easier with 3 of us." "And me?" What about our love? Doesn't it mean anything to you? Izzy, silly. Who's stopping you from coming with me? I've already told Fernando about it. Gabriel. I'm expecting a baby. Isabella said quietly. I wanted to tell you yesterday, but you weren't home all day. Izzy, darling, we'll definitely have children together, but just a little later, when we settle in a new place, save up some money. Gabriel, but the baby can't wait while we save up money, he'll be born in a few months. Izzy, listen, this baby can't be born right now. You understand? Let's go see a doctor together. What do you mean? Do you want to kill our baby? Tears streamed down the girl's cheeks. Baby, don't be dramatic. It has to be done. We're not ready yet to be good parents and provide the baby with a happy childhood, let alone his future life. You have very little time. It's all resolved quickly and easily. Quickly and easily? The girl stopped again. So for you, it's quick and easy to take the life of the baby I carry in my womb. He's alive, Gabriel, alive, do you understand? This is our child. Isabella, it's time to grow up and leave your girlish dreams behind. Now we need to think about how to earn money and settle down better. There are hair salons in Cyprus too. I'm sure you'll find your place there. Definitely better than in this hole. So adulthood for you begins with killing our future child. I understand, Gabriel. We're not on the same path, Isabella quickened her pace. Our town is not a hole, it's a paradise. She threw over her shoulder, without turning back. The guy didn't try to catch up with Izzy. He was sure she would come to her senses and fly to him on the wings of love, and say she had been foolish, that she was ready to go with him, without the future baby. But Isabella didn't answer his calls, avoided meeting him. The girl only went to work, to the market, and spent the rest of her time at home. Gabriel left a month after their last meeting on the seashore. Mom saw that Isabella was suffering, but couldn't find the right words. Dad just sighed, looked at his daughter with sympathy, and when they were alone with his wife, he cursed Gabriel, who dared to hurt his only daughter. Isabella didn't tell her parents anything about her situation. She understood that the truth would come out, and quite soon, but she didn't have the courage to confess everything. Everything was revealed by itself. Isabella returned home that day a little earlier than usual. She didn't feel well, and they let her go home. Izzy was valued at the hair salon as a good specialist, and clients spoke well of her. Only Izzy could find an approach to the most restless child and give him the best haircut. Isabella settled on the swing. She had no strength to go further. Sweetheart, you're up early today, her mother emerged onto the porch of their little house. She descended and approached Izzy. They let me go early today, Izzy said. You look pale and very tired. Are you feeling sick? Her mother placed her hand on Izzy's forehead. No, Mom, everything's fine, don't worry. I'll just sit here for a bit and then help you with dinner. Dinner is ready, darling. Aren't you hungry? I made your favorite grilled vegetables. Sounds tempting, Isabella managed to smile. I won't refuse such a dinner. They went into the house. Their father had gone on business to the neighboring city that day. It was quiet and peaceful at home. Izzy, darling, you're expecting a baby, aren't you? Mrs. Clara looked at her daughter attentively and tenderly. Isabella nearly choked. Yes, Mom, sorry I didn't tell you earlier. I was scared. Isabella stuttered, unable to hide the truth. Is it Gabriel's child? Her mother covered Izzy's hand with hers. The girl nodded and lowered her eyes, staring at the plate of vegetables. What a scoundrel! He suggested you get rid of your future child. You did the right thing, sweetheart. We'll manage. Your dad and I love you very much and will always support you. Isabella looked at her mother gratefully. She was afraid her mother would start reproaching her for what happened. Family matters were always very important to her mother. She had old-fashioned ideas about life. A child should be born within marriage, a woman must be able to manage a household and be a good mother, and so on. Thank you, Mom. You're the best mom in the world. Izzy stood up from her chair and hugged her mother. Matilda was born in mid-February. She looked so much like Isabella, only the dimple on her left cheek came from her father. Looking at her little daughter, Isabella forgot about her shattered dreams of a cozy home and a happy family. After all, the baby was not to blame that her father had rejected her even before she was born. But she had a loving mother and grandparents who adored their little girl, as they called her. Her father worked as a furniture assembler. People often called him to assemble cabinets, beds, or kitchen sets for them. They knew Jose would do everything right and at a low price. Her mother baked bread. Neighbors willingly bought it, coming straight to their house. Sometimes Isabella received clients at home, sometimes she even cut hair in the gazebo. It became a custom that mostly parents brought their kids to her. Mothers knew that Izzy would definitely handle their children and turn them into little beauties. That's how they lived, not in luxury, of course, but not in poverty either. Isabella lost her parents when Matilda turned 5. They went to visit friends in one of the neighboring towns. The brakes of the bus they were traveling on failed, and the driver couldn't do anything. He himself died, along with about a dozen of his passengers, including Jose and Clara. Izzy and her daughter were left all alone in this world. They had to rely only on their own strength. It wasn't easy to raise a child alone. But the love for little Maddie gave Isabel strength. She tried to give Matilda everything within her power, so she didn't sit still, always trying to find a new source of income. The young mother even dared to submit her fairy tales to a children's magazine once, the one she composed for Matilda, writing them in a notebook. She didn't expect anything, barely hoped, but her works were accepted, and they were pleased with her new tales. Isabel even managed to save some money for the future, trying not to spend the child allowance. One day Isabel met Bruno Moreno. The bad weather brought him to the town. A real hurricane broke out. It was impossible to drive further. The man turned off the road and decided to wait it out. He stopped near some abandoned house. Suddenly he noticed a 10-year-old girl. She was running, and raindrops beat on her bare hands. The dress clung to her slender body. Her hair was beating against her back, like dark fish. "Hey, little girl, come here," Bruno shouted. "Wait out the downpour in the car." The girl looked at him as if she saw a monster or at least a maniac in front of her and ran even faster. "Wait, I won't hurt you." He quickly jumped out of the car and covered the girl with his jacket. "Let me walk you home." They walked quickly, their feet sliding through the mud. The wind was about to tear the jacket off the girl and carry her away, but Bruno supported her, not letting it slip off her slender shoulders. "Come in," the girl said, out of breath. Bruno threw a quick glance at the ramshackle house. Suddenly the door swung open, and a young woman in a cloak appeared on the porch. "Holy Mother of God! Maddie! Where have you been in such weather? I was about to rescue you from the rain." "Here's your daughter safe and sound," Bruno smiled, gently pushing the girl forward, under the awning. "Oh, thank you so much. Where did you meet Matilda?" "At the beginning of the street, decided to wait out the downpour in the car and saw the girl." "What are we standing for? Come on in, have some tea with us. Maybe the rain will stop." "I'd love to." Bruno entered the house following Isabel. They drank tea in the small kitchen. It smelled of ginger and cinnamon. "Nice town, all green." "I wonder why I've never been here before," said Bruno, sipping the fragrant tea. "What brought you here now?" Isabel put cookies on the table. "You won't believe it. Rain. That rascal didn't let me drive, flooded the windshield, no wipers could handle it, and those gusts of wind. So I turned. Ended up on a magical street, and now even in a fairy's house, or rather 2 fairies' house." "You also call it fairies," ISI smiled. Somehow she felt warm and cozy from the words of this stranger to her. You have such a wonderful place here, you could open a sanatorium. I had a slightly different thought. If I had money, I would definitely organize something like a shelter for those who find themselves in difficult life situations, especially mothers with children. Isabel's words carried some strength and at the same time deep, sharp pain. Great idea. But you need to start with your own nest, and then build a house for this shelter. Bruno spoke seriously, without a hint of mockery. He believed in what he said. What do you think about it? Don't make me laugh. Where can a single mother get such money? My dream is destined to remain a dream. And what if I build you a nice little house, small but sturdy? Are you a builder? Isabel was surprised and looked at Bruno with interest. I used to be a builder, and now I manage a small construction company. But my hands still remember. He clapped his hands. Besides, I'll involve my guys. Bruno, why would you do that? You're seeing us for the first time. You know, Isabel, sometimes it only takes 5 minutes to understand that you're looking at your person. It just so happened that I still don't have a family, so why not help two such charming girls? He winked at Maddie. The girl was silent, but a smile appeared on her face. It's been almost 10 years since Bruno brought the drenched Matilda home. Bruno used to visit, as he said, the green town sporadically. He didn't promise to marry Izzy, and she didn't expect that either. They just enjoyed being together. There was neither tremor nor wild passion between them. It seemed as if fate had separated them long ago, only to bring them together again. Sometimes Izzy felt like Bruno was a relative who suddenly appeared in their lives with their daughter. Yet, they couldn't imagine life without each other. Izzy sat on her bed. Gabriel's arrival somehow threw her off balance. Love and resentment had long faded, but memories lingered. They, like persistent flies, emerged from the recesses of Izzy's subconscious. What if Gabriel hadn't abandoned her with a child in her womb 20 years ago? Would they still be together? What if she had gone with him to Cyprus back then? Izzy pondered. But only God had answers to these questions. However, he wasn't eager to share them with Izzy. It irritated her that Gabriel occupied her thoughts. He hadn't thought of her for 20 years. He wasn't interested in how she was living, how she was coping, because everything was fine with him. He lived for his pleasure. Now he had nowhere to go, no one in this world, and not even a roof over his head. Somehow, Izzy didn't feel angry with him in her soul. She didn't know if it was good or bad, but the fact remained. Perhaps she was grateful to him for Matilda? Perhaps. Mommy, are you not sleeping? Maddie peeked into the room. No, Maddie, come in. Can't sleep. Mom, who is this person? This Gabriel? Is he your childhood friend? No, honey, Izzy replied, pausing for a moment. He's your father. What? Is it true? Yes, Maddie, it's true. Izzy hugged her daughter, who sat beside her on the bed, with one arm. Why is he here? He absolutely didn't care about you, let alone me, all these years. What happened now? We live perfectly well without him. Especially with Bruno. You love Bruno, don't you? Yes, I guess I do. And I love Bruno. You know, he's a real man, doesn't blabber unnecessarily. If he promised something, he'll definitely do it. Yes, my girl, you're right. How grown up you've become, how swiftly time flies. And you're still as beautiful as ever, Mom. The girl laid her head on her mother's shoulder. Izzy was silent. She thanked heavens 1,000 times for giving her Maddie, and now she thanked again. If not for her daughter, she wouldn't have coped with this complex, sometimes cruel life. The next day, a 40-year-old woman arrived with her 8-year-old daughter. Izzy went out to meet the new tenants. Hello. My name is Chloe, and this is my daughter Laura. The girl looked scaredly at Izzy, clutching onto her mother's dress hem. Hello. Welcome to our quiet corner. No one will hurt you here. Izzy smiled at Laura. Kitty, the girl whispered almost inaudibly. Izzy glanced around. This is our Charles. Named after the writer Charles Dickens. He's affectionate and loves to play with a piece of string. Can I play with him? Laura asked timidly. Of course, you can. You can stroke him right now, while your mom and I go see the room where you'll be living. Laura ran to Charles, crouched down, and stroked him on the head. He closed his eyes in pleasure and started purring. Cat therapy worked quickly on Laura. The girl began to smile, her anxieties and fears gradually fading away. Gabriel had been living in the room assigned to him by Izzy for a week now. But he didn't hurry to find a job. Gabriel, it's time for you to look for a job and a place to stay, Izzy told him one day. Izzy, everything's under control. I'll have a job soon, he hugged her waist. The woman broke free from his embrace. You used to like it, Gabriel crossed his arms. Before, the trees were tall, Izzy replied, crossing her arms. You were a carefree wanderer then, and you still are. How fortunate I was not to make a mistake back then, 20 years ago. And your heart didn't skip a beat then, nor does it now, at the sight of my Maddie. Izzy, I'm just not used to being a father. When would you ever be? You have a car service, a cafe, girls, parties. Diapers and a baby's cries at night weren't part of your plans. But where is your career, for which you rushed all the way to Cyprus? You used to be kinder, Izzy. Gabriel pulled the swing rope. I used to dream of growing old with you, Gabriel. And I also dreamt of a cozy home, our home, and 3 cheerful kids. But these dreams are long shattered, and the shards have been thrown away. Isabella wanted to speak calmly, but it was slipping out of her hands terribly. Why was she so nervous and even angry? After all, everything had already passed. Sweetheart, I know I was a real jerk when I asked you to get rid of the baby. I just had bad luck, so I failed with the business. But I'll start over. We'll start. No way. Don't involve me in this. Figure it out yourself. You have a week. Find a job and a place to stay. You're not some helpless old man who can't manage without other people's help, so grow up already, take responsibility for your own life at least. Isabella walked away. Isabella was awakened by a strange sound, something was squeaking. She got out of bed and approached the window. A swing. They were swaying slightly, and the ropes, slightly damp from the rain, were making that not very pleasant sound. But the couple sitting on the wide seat seemed completely unconcerned about the squeaking. Isabella peered into the darkness. It was Chloe. Her light hair stood out. There were no more blondes among the lodgers. But who was she swinging so sweetly with? Probably not Loretta. It was too late. Isabella looked more closely and was stunned. It was Gabriel. Quickly he found solace after her rejection. Isabella understood that there was absolutely nothing to expect from Gabriel. He was an immature guy, irresponsible and not striving for anything, but for some reason, what she saw caused Isabella some inexplicable pain. Isabella glanced back at the swing. Gabriel and Chloe merged in a passionate kiss. Quickly she moved away from her husband's beatings and the fire he caused. She and her daughter barely managed to escape the house. And again, she found a man for herself who could absolutely not be relied upon, who would probably bring more trouble than joy and happiness. Isabella turned away from the window. Gabriel was not her story now, and she shouldn't think about this person. She just needed to kick him out as soon as possible. Because of all these nocturnal reflections, Isabella woke up later than usual. She was awakened by the sound of an approaching car. The woman jumped out of bed and rushed to the window. It was Bruno. She hadn't seen him for 2 weeks, business, trips. They only occasionally talked on the phone. At that moment, ISI realized how much she missed him, how she lacked his jokes, his tenderness, and conversations. Isabella ran out onto the street to meet Bruno. He was pulling out boxes and packages from the trunk. Hearing footsteps, he looked up and beamed. Hi. Isabella rushed into his arms. They hugged each other, and he buried his face in her still unkempt hair. "Your hair smells wonderful." "With what?" ISI was surprised, still not letting go of Bruno. "I don't know, happiness, probably." "ISI, my little bird, I wanted to tell you something." But his words were cut short. Chloe appeared on the porch. "What are you doing here? Want to take me back? Found out that your brother died in the fire and immediately decided to find me?" Her face expressed dislike bordering on hatred. "What is this woman doing in your house, Isabella?" Bruno looked at the woman with amazement. "Do you know each other?" Isabella answered a question with a question. "How could we not know each other?" Chloe approached closer. "Actually, this is my husband." "Ex-husband, Chloe, ex-husband. Besides, our marriage lasted less than a month." "You remember why? So you knew that Bruno and I were dating?" Isabella asked in bewilderment, looking at the woman. "How could I know? They just gave me your business card at social services, so my daughter and I came. Our house burned down completely. And here, I look, everything is blooming and smells good. My mom used to say that I chose the wrong brother. Yeah, love is evil. What's going on here?" Isabella couldn't bear it anymore. "Let me explain everything to you, my little bird. Let's go inside, I'll just gather the boxes. There are your favorite pastries inside. Is your mother at home?" They went to the house, and Chloe stayed outside. She angrily pulled the swing rope. What exactly annoyed her, only God knew. Probably herself. They had breakfast almost in silence. They enjoyed each other's company even when they simply sat quietly. Isabella didn't rush with questions. She knew Bruno would tell her everything. He was that kind of person, not fond of hiding the truth. After breakfast, they decided to take a walk, to get away from Chloe, from Gabriel, just to be alone together. There couldn't have been a better place than the seaside, or more precisely, its secluded corner. Not even the gloomy sky, which was threatening to rain any moment, stopped them. They kicked off their shoes and walked on the sand, caressing their bare feet. It seemed like nothing could disturb this simple happiness. And Bruno told her something he had never told anyone before. They had met Chloe at some party. He was struck by her lightness, vivacity, and unpredictability. They started dating, and soon Bruno proposed to her. The wedding was beautiful, with many guests. But less than a month later, returning from a business trip earlier than planned, he found his cousin Alfredo in his bed. Chloe was peacefully asleep beside him, resting her head on the guy's chest. That same day, Bruno filed for divorce. It was fortunate that there was nothing to divide. They parted quite amicably. She didn't even try to justify herself. She just said that if she had met Alfredo earlier, she would never have married Bruno for anything. He wasn't interested in the fate of his ex-wife and cousin. He heard from acquaintances that Alfredo often leaned on the bottle while she worked as a maid in a hotel. Later, he heard that they had a daughter named Lorita. He genuinely felt sorry for the girl, who was forced to live with her wayward parents. "That's why you gave up on marriage," Isabella smiled. "You didn't insist, and You didn't understand. I'm not insisting on anything even now. I just feel good with you, that's all. I don't need a stamp in my passport or a wife status. It's true. Many will say I'm twisting my soul. But it's not like that. I know, my dear, you don't know how to twist your soul. That's why I love you with all my being." These words scorched Isabella like candle flames. He had never spoken of love before. She felt that she mattered to him, that he was willing to help, that he was interested in her and Matilda, but nothing more. Isabella tried not to think about it at all, afraid to scare away their happiness. "You know, Bruno, I have something to tell you too," ISI said somewhat mysteriously. "What is it?" He slowed his pace slightly. "Matilda's father is currently living in our shelter." "What?" Bruno stopped and stared at his companion. Imagine, everything fell apart for him. It's been 20 years since the day he chose me and Maddie, who wasn't even born yet, over 100 million in Cyprus, which was supposed to literally make him and his brother golden. He never once thought of me, not once. And he had the nerve to show up here? Bruno started walking again. Yes, imagine that. At first, I just wanted to kick him out, but then for some reason, I softened and allowed him to stay in a small room on the ground floor of the annex. But it's time for him to hit the road. And Chloe too. I'll think of something we can do for them. That's so appropriate, for both of them, Isabella smirked. What do you mean? Is there something I don't know yet? Yesterday, I saw those two kissing on the swings. Maybe they finally found their happiness. What do you think? You know, I hope so. Just preferably far away from us. They walked in silence for some time. Then suddenly Bruno stopped and said, Isabella, my darling, marry me. The woman looked at him, unable to find words. I know. It should have been done 10 years ago, but... Forgive me, fool. But now everything will be different. I want to be with you, always. And you? And I, Isabella replied quietly, leaning into his shoulder. Seagulls began to laugh high above, as if rejoicing for them. Waves crashed one after another, licking the edge of the shore, and they stood silently, oblivious to everything around them. Suddenly they were pulled out of this bliss by the sound of a phone ringing. It's Maddie. Yes, darling. Are you awake already, my sunshine? Yes, Mommy, Lorita woke me up. She says her mom is nowhere to be found. We'll come right now, Matilda. Who's we? The daughter asked, surprised. Me and Bruno. Bruno is here? Where did he park the car? Near the house. Where else? Mom, it's not there. It can't be. Okay, we're running home. What happened, ISI? Bruno, it seems those two stole your car. Let's run home, quickly. Before they do something stupid. When Bruno and Isabella, out of breath from their fast walk, approached the house, they saw Maddie and Lorita. They were sitting on the swings, gently swaying. Hi, Bruno. Matilda greeted. Glad to see you. Hi, my little one, Bruno greeted her. Since childhood, Bruno called Maddie like that. He didn't change his habit even now. The car was nowhere to be seen. What a fool. Forgot to take the key out of the ignition. Got distracted by that airhead Chloe. Idiot. As if confirming his words, the sky responded with loud thunderclaps. Let's go inside, Isabella suggested. It's definitely going to pour. Can you imagine? I even left my wallet in the car. I wonder what those two are hoping for. Matilda murmured. Judging by their lack of development, they could hope for anything, Bruno replied with a slight sadness. He declared a hijacking, froze the accounts, made calls to someone. It must have been about 2 hours past. Lorita gradually began to calm down. She still hadn't recovered from that terrible night when the fire started. Her father fell asleep with a cigarette. As usual, he was drunk. The old house burned down like a matchstick. How did they manage to escape to the street with her mother? They barely suffered any harm. But poor Lorita was about to experience another tragedy. Closer to the evening, Bruno's car was found. It skidded into the oncoming lane on the slippery rain-soaked road. The speed was too high for such bad weather. The driver and passenger died on the spot. No one understood where these two were heading. Perhaps they wanted to hide in some remote village. Apparently, it never occurred to them that they would be found sooner or later. Reckless people often get into troubles, which often have the most terrible consequences for them. Lorita didn't cry. Only after the funeral did she burst into tears, clinging to Isabella. The girl had no one left in this world except Bruno. Although he was her father's cousin, they were still relatives. Izzy and Bruno were sitting in the living room. Matilda took Laura to her. The girl couldn't be left alone now. Just like in a movie, Bruno said. They found us as if they wanted to say goodbye and leave this world together. It's as if the universe punished them for what they did to us. So many coincidences, Izzy replied. I always knew life is more dramatic than any thriller. But now I want the thriller to turn into a romantic comedy. Or at least a melodrama. Bruno took a velvet heart-shaped box out of his pocket and opened it. Inside, a delicate ring gazed at Isabella with its green emerald eye. Oh my! It's so lovely. It must have cost a fortune. Izzy reached out her hand to Bruno. He carefully put the ring on the finger of his future wife. I declare the engagement official, he said, and kissed Isabella on the nose. You know, Bruno, we need to adopt Lorita, Izzy said quietly, pressing closer to her future husband. I was afraid to suggest it to you. Nonsense. I thought about it right away when they were found. You're the best woman on this planet. Bruno hugged Isabella even tighter, and they merged into a long kiss. Everything intertwined in the lives of these people: sorrow, happiness, death, and new life. But from all this mess, hope seemed to emerge. She adjusted the golden wreath on her head and whispered softly, Now you are truly ready for happiness. Now you will definitely not miss it and will keep it for many happy years to come. All Bruno and Isabella could do was nod in agreement. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, please support the video by liking it and leaving a comment. Thank you.